I'm Ashley Wagasback, feeding therapist, occupational therapist, and lactation consultant. Look forward to discussing all things feeding so that we can support you to bring your little one to their maximum potential so that feeding can be enjoyable for the entire family.
Are you looking for a community of other moms joining together to support their little one through the ups and downs of feeding and gross motor milestones? The Thriving Together community is just for you. Find us on social media at Instagram, Facebook, and www.sensorysolutionsTherapy.com to learn more. We look forward to seeing you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Feeding Solutions podcast. Today, my guest is Mallory Kindt. She's a certified pediatric sleep consultant and the founder of the Baby Sleep Haven. She's a proud mama of two little boys, and she and her family currently live in Iowa. She started the Baby Sleep Haven after experiencing firsthand just how overwhelming and exhausting sleepless nights can be. As a first time mom, Mallory also questioned her own parenting choices, especially around sleep, and struggled to feel like she was doing it right. Doing it right, aren't we always? Now she has become the very support she once needed, a compassionate, knowledgeable guide who walks parents step by step through helping their baby to sleep better. Mallory believes that better sleep is truly life changing and that with the right support, every baby can sleep better. So, welcome. Thank you so much for being
Thank you.
on. I
Yes,
appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be here. I am very passionate about sleep. I could talk about it for hours, so this is a great place.
Yeah, and you're right. It is life changing. I mean, so much happens. I think we take for granted, like, oh, I just need to feel rested. But I mean, again, like I'm working with a population of babies who are struggling to feed, and you can only restore and heal when you're having
Mhm.
good quality sleep. And so, again, like this is amazing. So, share a little bit about yourself with us.
Yeah, so I think you summed up the most important aspects of me in that introduction. So, my family and I live in Iowa City right now. My husband's getting his PhD. So, we're spending 5 years here while he works on that. I have my two little boys. So, I have about a 2.5 year old, and then I have a 4 month old. So, with my first baby, I was not yet a sleep consultant yet. Obviously, that was kind of the catalyst of why I have done what I've done. And then with my second baby, I've been able to use all my skills and it's been amazing. Like when people talk about newborn bliss, I'm like, I get it. You can
Mm,
actually enjoy your baby and not just be surviving, kind of like you were saying, day to day. So, become a huge sleep nerd in the sleep science. It goes a lot along with kind of my background. My college degree is in family life, which is really vague, but
mm,
basically just has to do with like the human development right through the lifespan, and then specifically in families, how relationships, how we affect one another, how just the family system functions. So it's become this
really.
just passion project of mine to like help people sleep because it did change my life.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so tell us what of all the things, because that's a wide background. I'm sure you could
Yes.
have you gone in a lot of different directions. So why sleep consultant?
Yeah. So there's always this story I like to share about
Hmm.
why I became a sleep consultant. So my whole life, I dreamed of becoming a mom. I have four siblings. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I just always pictured myself, staying at home with children. So when I was having my first baby, I was so excited, right? And I wasn't unfamiliar with kids. I have a lot of cousins. I have younger siblings.
Hmm.
And I was like, it's going to be great. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be great, right? But like
Right.
most things, you don't know how hard it can be until you do
Yeah.
it.
Hmm.
And I remember when my son was about 2 months old, I don't know, he was probably up for like the fourth or fifth time that night, right? And that this was like consecutive nights of this. And I just remember like holding him in my arms and literally telling him, like, just go to sleep and like crying, right? Because I'm just like, just go to
Hmm.
sleep. And of course, that's not going to do anything for a 2 month old, but like, I was so desperate just to get him back to sleep so I could sleep because I like
Yes.
hated the version of myself that I was becoming.
Sure.
Um, and I so badly,
Hmm.
right in the back of my head was like, what am
Hmm.
I doing wrong? My sister actually happened to have a baby who was like the exact same age, and at 2 months was like sleeping through the night. And I was like, which I know now is like
Yeah.
not common,
Not
but I was like,
common, right?
what am I doing wrong? Right.
Sure,
So I look
sure.
back at that moment where I was just like, I honestly was like, should I have had a baby? And that sounds so horrible, right?
I
To be
know.
like, oh my gosh, like, did I make a mistake in having my baby? And that made me feel so much shame and so guilt, like so
Yes.
guilty. But once I was sleeping a couple months later, like once things finally fell into place, I realized it was just because I was sleep deprived.
Right.
And my mental health was suffering, my relationship was suffering, right? Nothing about me was like the best version of myself. And then when I was feeling
Mm,
better, of course, being a mom is still hard. Anybody who's a mom at any stage of motherhood will tell you that it's hard, right? But
right.
I think there's such a difference between we're just surviving day to day, like
Mm-hmm.
barely, and we're
Mm-hmm.
thriving in motherhood. And it's hard, but we can also enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that change in me that I saw, like when I was, I don't know, he was probably 4 or 5 months old when he started sleeping better. I was like, wow, like sleep changes
Yeah.
everything
Everything.
for
Mm-hmm.
everybody, right? My husband and I were
Mm-hmm.
doing better. My baby was doing better because like he
Mm-hmm.
was actually getting the sleep that he needed. He wasn't cranky all
Mm-hmm.
day. I was doing better. Just everybody was doing better.
Yeah.
And then about, I don't know, it was probably close to right before my son turned 1 on Instagram, somebody I had been following, right, a sleep coach, announced that she was going to train other sleep consultants.
Oh,
And I
nice.
just, in the back of my head, right, it just kept ruminating like, this is something I could do
Mm-hmm.
to really make a difference for other people. Because I absolutely like think I make the biggest difference right at home with my children,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really important to me as a person just to help other people. And I felt like I would be doing people a disservice if I didn't like apply my college education and like
Mm-hmm.
just try, even if it
Yeah.
was just for
Yeah.
me and like my sisters and my cousins, right, to like help them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just has snowballed. I made the leap. And then it's just snowballed into I finished my certification. I decided to start my own business. And now it's been a
Mm-hmm.
year since I started my business. And like there's been lots of ups and downs in that,
Of course. Yeah.
journey. But I have seen the difference many times over now that it makes for people. So it
Absolutely.
keeps me going, even when it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, I remember with in the newborn stage going like having this cloud over me where like I used to look forward to being able to go to sleep at night, but then with the newborn stage and however long you're getting broken
Mhm.
sleep, it's like the days and the nights run in together. And so you
Yeah.
never like can catch your breath. And
Yes.
so it did have a major impact on my mental health.
Yes.
And
You
so,
just
I mean,
you feel like literally, I feel like your nervous system, right, is in like fight or flight all day,
100%.
right? And
It
you can never
is.
get to that spot. It's like for babies, like it's so important, right? We get to that spot where like we're in rest and digest and we can actually, like
Mhm.
you said, restore ourselves. And
Mhm.
when you're sleep deprived, you can never do that, right? And I think so many people, new moms especially, experience like the sundown scaries, right? You see the sun go
Yes.
down and like
Yes, I think
your
that's
brain.
exactly I didn't know that was like a term. So that was
Mhm.
exactly what I would say I
Yeah.
had.
Yeah, like your brain and your body just honestly go into survival fight or flight mode because you're like,
Mhm.
I have to somehow get through the night,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it's like, and now I see people when they can put their baby down at 7 or 8, they can lay them down, they fall asleep on their own. They know that they're going to sleep, right? Most of the time, right? Because they're
Mhm.
humans, not robots, but most of the time. And then there's just this piece of like, okay, I have 2 hours to myself before I need to go to bed.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
mom shouldn't feel selfish for being a
Mhm.
little excited for their kids to go to bed, right? For
Mhm.
having that space because you're with your kids for 10 to 12 hours. You're pouring so much into them. I know moms are, or you're pouring so much time into your work and your children, right? And so
Mhm.
having those couple
Mhm.
hours like is just I feel like so crucial.
Absolutely. Tell me about your philosophy with sleep. There's so many different books out there and they all seem to kind of have their spin on things.
Yep.
So, where do you land?
Yeah. Um, I would say I kind of have two guiding philosophies. One is that every baby can sleep better, but the way we get to better sleep does not look the same and shouldn't look the
Okay.
same for every baby. Um, which is why I tend to steer away from any methodology that says this is the one way you should do it. And if you don't
Mhm.
follow it exactly, things aren't going to work and you're never going to get better sleep because I don't believe that.
Mhm.
There's a
Mhm.
lot of ways to get to the same point. And my other one that I kind of have said already is that better sleep really is life-changing. I think moms, sometimes there's this narrative, I feel like especially on social media, that you're a better mom the more that you sacrifice and the more you
Mm,
give of yourself,
gosh.
right? And of
Yeah.
course, motherhood is going to take sacrifice, right? And you have to give lots all day, every day, but eventually you're going to run empty. And
Hmm.
nobody wants to get to that point, right? Because I almost feel like that's not safe mentally,
No, I
like for
agree.
your family. And so my other philosophy is like, you don't need to feel selfish for wanting better sleep, because not only will it improve your baby's sleep, like your sleep, but it also improves your baby's sleep. And that does have really important benefits for them, right? Sleep is one of our core human needs, right? Like
Yes.
hunger, like thirst, sleeping,
Hmm.
it's up there, right? And sometimes I feel like parents are shamed for wanting to put their sleep as a priority, or like their
Yeah.
baby sleep as a priority, and kind of just like not want to tough it out, right? And just kind of deal with the broken sleep. So I'd say those are
Yeah.
my two things, right? I believe every baby can sleep better, but it should look
Hmm.
different for everybody. And I don't think anybody should feel guilty for wanting better sleep.
I love that. It's so gentle,
Yeah.
taking everybody where they are, you
Hmm.
know. So, what are some reasons? There's the big obvious reasons why people seek your support, but I'm sure there's also some other reasons in between where it might not be as obvious. So, who's leaning on you?
Yeah, so I think honestly, it's not so much that like sleep training or like improving sleep is so complicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the things most of the time that I'm telling people are like, oh my gosh, that's so revolutionary, right? I'd never thought about that before. But I think people more come to me because they're like, I just can't do all the puzzling and like the mental
Yes,
load by myself
I agree.
anymore, right?
Yes, that makes sense.
Because you can get a ton, like even on my own social media, you can get a ton of information online for
Mm-hmm.
free. But
Mm-hmm.
then it's taking that all information, which doesn't always agree with one another. I'd say like
Mm-hmm.
60% of it does not agree
Mm-hmm.
with one another. And then just trying to put all those pieces together is a huge mental load. And if you're already sleep deprived, right, like
Yeah,
you have no more
absolutely.
capacity, you have no more bandwidth. So I feel like most of the time when families come to me, it's not because I'm necessarily going to tell them these like revolutionary things that like they've never thought of before or
Mm-hmm.
couldn't piece together on their own, but it's because they just need someone to help them walk through it and say,
Absolutely.
I've helped 60 babies sleep better. So I have
Mm-hmm.
60 babies worth of experience in my brain to tell you, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is probably going to work. This probably isn't. Let's try A and B. And then if that doesn't work, we can pivot here, right? And it's not
Mm-hmm.
hard for me at this point anymore. But when
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at my own son, right, and trying to take information from this blog and this
Oh,
book and this
absolutely.
Instagram account and put it together, I just felt like I was walking in circles and I felt like I
Mm-hmm.
tried everything, right?
Yes.
Um, and I actually met with a sleep consultant before I got certified, and literally she told me like two things and it changed everything. And I was like, why did I wait so long? Why did I suffer for so long? Why didn't I
Long.
just ask for help? Because it
Mm-hmm.
really wasn't that complicated. So I think
Yeah.
that's why parents come to me, because they just want someone to like walk them through it and just to
Yeah.
take like the mental load off their shoulders.
Yeah. And I think like we're in the information overload period
Yes.
and there's so much out there. And I know exactly that. Like when you can give a parent, like work on these one, two, three things, I know like this
Hmm.
is specifically what your baby could benefit from, then they're
Hmm.
able to be super consistent. But I mean, I
Yeah.
know as a parent, when I'm not sure, I'm I'm half, 50% of the time, and then we know that that doesn't work
Yeah,
either.
well, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? And
It
seeing what
is.
sticks. It's saying like, is this
Mm-hmm.
going to stick today? Is this going to stick today? And one of like the guiding principles of baby sleep is you have to be consistent for like
Mm-hmm.
a decent amount of time to know if it'll
Yeah.
work or not,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because human beings, we're not very good with change. So anytime
Right.
we change something, even if it's for the better, there's going to be a little bit of growing pains and it's going to
Yeah.
take a little bit of time. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when you're desperate, right? Parents change thing every single night and then babies just don't know what to
Yeah.
expect, or we don't know if that actually was going to help or not. But I
Yeah.
completely understand because like I said, I am potty training my son right now and I'm on day 2 and I'm like, is this actually going to work? I'm like, should I try
Absolutely.
something
Something
different
different.
tomorrow? And I have to remind myself, like, just be consistent. It's
Yeah,
been 2 days. He's been in diapers for 2 years. Like, it takes
absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. Okay, so consistency is one thing that
Mhm.
families need. So, what are some other things that parents could do to help support better sleep?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is, well, I say that there's lots of things. Consistency
Hmm.
is a big one, right? I kind of like to explain it like a roller coaster almost. So imagine you're sitting in the roller coaster, right? You're getting ready to go on the ride, and you kind of push up against the lap belt to make sure, like, okay, this is keeping me in place, right?
Hmm.
It's kind of the same things for our babies. You can imagine if you pushed up against that lap belt and it like flew up, you would be
Yeah.
concerned. You would not know what's going on, right? Same thing for our babies. If we have a consistent routine, and I don't believe in like militant to the minute routine, but if we
Hmm.
have a consistent routine, our babies know what to expect as far as our approach to sleep, they're going to sleep better.
Hmm.
Um, Other things, a big one is not comparing your babies to another baby.
Hmm.
Like I shared, my 2 month old, my first son, was waking up, I don't know, upwards of like 7 or 8 times a night. My sister's baby was sleeping through the night at 2 months, right? So it made me feel like I was going crazy because I was like, what am I doing wrong? But I just
Right.
had a different baby. He had a different temperament, he had different needs. Looking back, I'm pretty sure he had reflux, but I just
Hmm.
didn't know that, right?
Hmm.
And helping him with
Hmm.
that probably would have helped him sleep. And I think another thing I would tell parents is like, if you feel like you're walking yourself in circles, just ask for help. And I know
Yes.
that can feel scary, right? Because it's like a big investment often, and
Hmm.
you're like, what if it's not going to work? But I
Hmm.
think chances are, at least then you're going to have information on what didn't work,
Yes.
and then hopefully you can make some progress, right? It's
Hmm.
a lot of detective work to kind of figure out why
It
sleep isn't
is.
working. Um,
Right.
but having someone else to do it with you is going to, again, take off a lot of like the mental load.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay, so when should someone seek your support?
I think if you're thinking like, I feel like I could maybe have some help, right? Or
Hmm.
if you feel like you've tried everything and nothing's
Hmm.
working, or if you feel like you're just waiting and waiting and waiting for sleep to get
Hmm.
better and it's not getting better, which spoiler alert, most of the time it will not just get better on its own,
Yeah.
at least not quickly. That's when
Hmm.
you should reach out. Honestly, the sooner we can work together, the better.
Hmm.
Um, all babies can sleep better no matter their age, but it's a lot
Okay.
different to help like a 4 or 5 month old start sleeping well than like a 15 or 18-month old to start sleeping well, right?
Yeah.
Just due to age, right? They've gotten a lot more into habits, and an 18-month old is a lot
Yeah.
more aware of kind of their sleep environment. So change just takes more time.
Yeah.
A 4 month old, right, is just barely getting out of the newborn bubble. It's just barely starting to form things like sleep associations, which is how
Hmm.
they're used to going to sleep. So changing that is going to be a lot quicker. So honestly, I think the
Hmm.
sooner the better.
Yeah.
But also it's never too late.
Too late. Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, I think got support with a sleep consultant, and my son was, I'd say, probably 14 months. And
Hmm.
hearing you say that, it was rough. It was
Yeah.
rough at 14 months trying to make
Yeah.
a fair amount of change.
Right. And I
Um,
think often people think, right, oh, it's normal for my baby to be waking, which it is. Like babies
yeah.
do need to wake to feed, many of
Hmm.
them until they're like 6, 9, even 12 months old.
Hmm.
But it's not normal for them to be waking up every 2 to 3 hours after
Yeah.
like 4 months. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so it often is. I feel like when I see parents the most actually is probably between like 10 and 18 months when they're like, I thought it was just going to get better and it hasn't gotten
Yes.
better.
Yes. Yes.
And so then it's like, yeah, okay, right? Because often, right, we kind of just struggle. We get through the newborn phase. There's the 4 month regression, and you're like, okay, it's going to get better. And it just
Yes.
doesn't
Yeah.
always.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, and that's encouragement that it like going and seeking support at 4 months is not ridiculous.
Oh,
You
no.
know?
Yeah. And even if you're like, oh, well, it's not that bad, right? Well, does it feel like sustainable? If it kept going on
Right.
like this for another year, another 2 years, do you think you could do that? And if you're saying no, you don't think you could, it's
Mhm.
probably time to get help.
Mhm.
And even if you're like, I just want to talk it through with someone to make sure, like, is this
Yes.
normal? Is this where like my baby should be? And I hate saying should, but like, is this kind of
Yeah.
average for the age, right? I think just having
Mhm.
the information of what's normal in baby sleep can be so helpful too.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit about the different approaches and styles
Hmm.
of sleep consultants and sleep
Hmm.
training.
Yeah. I think if you spent any time on the internet, on social media,
Mhm.
you know that there's a wide range of sleep
Yeah.
training
Yeah.
approaches.
Yeah.
I always like to clarify that sleep training at its core is really, for me, is just teaching a baby how to fall asleep from being completely awake to completely asleep on their own. The way
Okay.
we get there looks a lot different.
Okay.
You'll hear of methods like cry it out, right? And I
Mhm.
think sometimes people's brains automatically jump to, we put them in their crib, we shut the door, we don't see them till morning. I'd say that's pretty an antiquated type of sleep training that I would say almost, I don't know of any sleep consultants that would recommend that sort of training anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then there's kind of the middle ground, right, which is commonly known as like the Ferber method, where you'll do
Uh,
timers and check-ins. And then there's
mhm.
even more hands-on than that, right, where I like to call it association fading. So let's say your baby's used to being rocked to sleep, and it's
Okay.
how do we slowly switch their association to get to the point where you can put them down awake and leave the room. And that
Mhm.
just takes quite a bit of time, which is totally fine if you don't want to
Mhm.
let your baby cry,
Mhm.
alone at all. Um, yeah, sleep training is quite a bit of a buzzword, right? If you've been
Yeah.
on social media. So I think if you're ever going to work with a sleep consultant, I think it's helpful to chat with them and be like, what
Yeah.
methods do you use, right? Something that's important to me is I was trained in 4 different methods. So they range from that
Okay.
more accelerated cry it out, not the type where, you close the door, don't see them till morning. Don't believe in that. But kind of giving them some time to independently protest to that very gradual association fading. And there's kind of two
Mhm.
in between. So I think just finding a sleep consultant that you feel will respect like your values and your wishes.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
and it's important to me that I do all of them because all of the methods, when they're done correctly with a good foundation, support a
Mhm.
secure attachment. So
Okay.
it's not
Okay.
that we're concerned about. It's more every parent, every baby is different. So we've got to find kind of the goodness of fit, right? Like the best fit
Yes.
for your family,
Yes.
for your baby.
So, I was going to ask regarding like how you support families when they're dealing with like, maybe having to do the cried out method. But you just said something that, because I think this is like a lie or misunderstanding of my own, is that like crying it out, there's a way to do it without having an impact on the connection. I think moms are just so worried about their
Oh,
baby feeling like abandoned.
yes, absolutely. And
Mhm.
understandably, right? There is a
Mhm.
lot of, unfortunately, misinformation on
Mhm.
social media that comes from actually a place of truthfulness, but is twisted in the sleep
Yeah.
training narrative.
Mhm.
So something I kind of like to explain is one of the big concerns I hear from families is kind of that very thing, like the baby just stops crying because they know you're not coming.
Mhm.
And where that kind of comes from is there's 2 studies. One did a study on babies' cortisol, which is the stress hormone,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they measured it on day 1 and day 3. These babies that were sleep trained, this was done in a hospital setting, and it was kind of the most extreme version where I
Mm.
think they gave them, I'd have to review the study, but about 60 minutes to get themselves to sleep, right? It's kind
Okay.
of just 60 minutes straight of like up and down crying. When they measured their cortisol, what they found is on day 1, both the baby's and the mom's cortisol was higher than kind of like the baseline. But by day 3, the babies had stopped crying, and the mom's cortisol was lower because the baby's not signaling stress. But the
Mm.
baby's cortisol is still higher. But the reason this study is not completely not truthful but accurate, and we have to be careful when we're interpreting the results, is because they didn't do any long-term follow-up. So they didn't
Uh,
check the baby at a week, they didn't check the baby at 2 weeks to see like what happened.
mhm.
um, Other studies that have measured cortisol have found that if you take the cortisol measurements later on, the babies that are sleep trained, their cortisol is back to baseline and they're sleeping better.
Mm.
um, So, right, if you take that one study and you kind of don't look at it in the full context, you can totally be
Yes.
like, oh yeah, like they stopped crying
Mhm.
because they knew nobody was coming. But that was
Right.
only on day 3, right?
Gotcha.
And we all go through stressful events. Like my
Hmm.
toddler's being potty trained. That's probably a little stressful for him. We learn how to ride a bike. Eventually, we have to learn how to drive a car, right? We
Yeah.
go through stressful events throughout our life. So cortisol is not necessarily a bad thing,
Yeah.
obviously in its limits, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Um,
Hmm.
the other study that people often misquote, in my opinion, is there's been studies done specifically in Romanian orphanages. Um, and basically, what those studies report is the children don't cry at all. Um,
Wow.
because, right, they've really been subject to chronic like abuse and neglect. They're getting the very minimum of needs met. They're getting fed and changed essentially, but they're not getting
Hmm.
picked up, being interacted with. But that's chronic, right? That's
Right.
years of neglect. That's not a baby who is loved and kissed and sung to and fed and rocked all day long, right? And then we're giving them 10 or 15 minutes to try to fall asleep on their own and checking
Hmm.
in repeatedly, right?
Hmm.
And where the progress happens in a few days to a week. That is honestly
Totally
like
different. Yeah.
apples and oranges. They're just
Uh-huh.
not the same.
Yeah. Makes
But
sense.
as a parent myself, I have respect, right, for other parents who read those social media posts that talk about these studies and why they're so
Right.
fearful.
Yeah.
So if anybody is really worried about cry it out, I just say go to the sources, like go to the source and see what they actually say. Maybe read the research, right? That shows that
Mhm.
there's not any long-term negative effects. Attachment is not disrupted at all, but you still don't
Mhm.
feel okay with your baby crying on their own. That's totally fine, right?
Okay.
But just when you're on social media, right, we all just have to remember that not everything we read on the internet is true.
True. Yeah.
So I hold a lot of space, right, for parents. Like I said, if they say like I don't want to do any cried out, I'm like, okay, that's fine. We don't have to. We can get your baby to sleeping without that. But I
Mhm.
don't want people to not make that choice from misinformation, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Very, very true. So, do you recommend different approaches based on the age of the child that's coming in to see you?
Yes. So any formal sleep training, so if you're allowing for any independent protest, I don't recommend until the baby is at least 4 to 6 months old.
Okay. Okay.
Because any self-settling skills don't really develop until around that time. And
Okay.
additionally, they have to go through kind of the biological sleep change that happens around 4 months old, where they're going from newborn sleep to more adult-like sleep, and they're going through more stages of sleep essentially. So your baby is just not going to be capable of self-settling and like staying in deeper sleep until 4 to 6 months. Um, as babies get older too, right, and they get more in their habits, it kind of goes, I find, one of two ways. You either really have to like kind of have a boundary and say like, yep, we're learning how to fall asleep on our own.
Mhm.
And you do give
Mhm.
them some time for independent protest, or there's the kind of the other group of babies that like if you did that, it would not be good
Mm.
for them, right? And that's where we kind of do the more hands-on, let's gradually just step back how much support we're giving you to get to sleep. And that's why like taking in temperament and like age and developmental stage is so important, and not just
Absolutely.
saying there's this one method and it works for most babies, because what about the 15% of babies that it doesn't work for?
Okay.
So if you're ever looking for a sleep consultant, what I'd say is try to find somebody who has more than one method in case
Yeah.
what you originally do doesn't work,
That makes sense.
because you need a way to pivot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, what's something someone might not know? We're trying to get babies to sleep. That's why we call a sleep consultant. But,
Yep.
like, are there other things that we might not be aware of that you would help someone with their baby?
I think because I have both education and experience in seeing things that affect sleep that you might not think about. So I think most people think about like, oh, maybe they're sleeping too much in the day, maybe they're not sleeping
Mm,
enough,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe they're always feeding to sleep, right? So of course they
Right.
like want to feed to sleep all the time, but things that I see, especially in younger babies, are things like tongue and lip ties or feeding difficulties, right? If babies aren't feeding well, they're not going to
Hmm.
sleep well. If they have feeding difficulties, they might have gas or reflux. I see a lot of babies that have higher sensory needs, right? Making sure we're
Mhm.
meeting those is also going to help your baby sleep better. So that's something else that I help parents with is let's look at the underlying causes of your sleep
Good.
issues and not just like scheduling is so important, but it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Mhm.
So, yes, I can give you kind of a schedule to work with. Yes, I can teach you how to help your baby fall asleep, but I can also help you look at all this other side of things that might be missing, might not be working for your baby. And if we can
Yeah.
solve that, they're going to learn how to fall asleep so much easier.
Okay. Yeah. So what's it look like to work with you if someone wants to seek support?
Yes. So I have a variety of consultation options because
Okay.
I firmly believe, right, everybody needs unique support.
Mhm.
So I do both 30 and 60-minute calls. So if you're like, I think you can give me all the information and I can kind of run with it and do it, great. I also do packages. So an initial consultation and then multiple follow-ups built in. And my
Okay.
package clients also get my nap guide, which has like 50 pages of basically everything that's in my brain about naps is yours to kind of refer to, right?
Mhm.
Since you can't have access to me all the time, even
Yes.
if I wish you could. And when I work with people, right, we kind of start with a really thorough assessment of tell
Mhm.
me everything about your baby's sleep, basically everything about your baby's life.
Mhm.
And I kind of after having all that information, we'll kind of come up with a plan A, and I'll say, this is what I think we should move forward with first.
Mhm.
And this is why I love package clients, right? Because they can come back to me in a week or two and say, this works great or this didn't, because I've
Yeah.
said it before and I'll say it again, right? Babies are humans, not robots. So I'd say like 80% of the time they do what I expect them to, but 20% I'm like, that was unexpected.
Uh-huh.
And we pivot, right?
Mhm.
So but I love to see people all the way through the process. So from where they're
Mhm.
really struggling to like, yeah, I think we have a hang on this and my baby's sleeping well. Um,
Yes.
and that also looks different for people, right? Some people
Mhm.
are like, I'm happy if my baby's only waking once or twice a night. Like that's huge
Mhm.
improvement. And some people are like,
Mhm.
I want to sleep all the way through the night. It just looks different for people. So
Right. Right.
I do that assessment, get your goals, we come up with plan A, and then if you do a package, we follow up. And it's amazing. It's the most beautiful process.
That's awesome. What's something you wish parents knew that you could help with?
Um, Great question. Really, what comes to mind is just knowing what's normal for your baby's
Mhm.
age. I think
Yeah,
it's going to take off so much of the pressure.
I agree.
An example from my own life, right, with my first son, I thought babies came out taking like 1 to 2 hour naps, which was
Mm.
like a total misunderstanding of mine because newborns actually take anywhere from like 20-minute naps to like 3 hour naps, and all of it's normal, right? But again, it got back in my head like, what am I doing wrong? My baby's not napping. What am
Yes.
I doing wrong? And I didn't know that babies don't typically take that long of naps until they're like 5 or 6 months old. With my second baby, right? This time I
Mhm.
know like sometimes, so he's about 4 months now, so not technically a newborn anymore. But when he sleeps like 30 minutes, I'm like, that's the nap we got. And just now, oh, sorry, my sister is
No
wanting to
problem.
FaceTime. So I'll have to wait.
No worries.
Um, but now I know that um it's normal and I just don't
Mhm.
stress about it and we just move on with our day and we try again at the next nap and I know he's going to get to those nice long independent naps in time, right? So
Mhm.
nothing's changed, right? They both were taking
Yeah.
short naps, but the only thing that's changed is I know it's normal now. So
Yes.
even if like you wanted to do a 30-minute call and say, tell me all the things that are normal about baby sleep and when things aren't normal, I think that
Yes.
can be hugely empowering.
I agree. That's beautiful. That would be so helpful. Absolutely. Just that.
Yeah, just being like, "Oh, this is normal?
Mhm.
Great. Like, this
Okay.
is how
Phew.
often a newborn wakes up at night? Great. Does that
Mhm.
make it easier? No, but just knowing
Right.
it's normal, that makes it easier."
Mhm. Mhm. All right. So a mama of two, what's your advice that you would give to a parent who
Yes,
is needing it?
who's needing it. Just be really, really kind to yourself,
Mhm.
right? I think especially as a first-time mom, I had all these wonderful ambitions of being this perfect, always put together mom. And now having 2 kids, it's really humbled me. But just something else that will always stick with me, my mom has always told me this, is there's no way to be a perfect mom, but there's a lot of ways to be a good mom.
Love that.
And I believe that, right? Parents who choose to co-sleep, I believe that they're good parents. Parents who choose to do cry it out, I believe that they're good parents. I think every parent is just trying to do the best with the information that they have. And I think in general, we just need to have more like grace and tenderness towards people.
For sure.
And meeting people where they're at. So give that to yourself too. You know, have grace, have tenderness. I need to listen to my own advice, but just be patient with yourself and where you're at.
Absolutely. So how can people find you?
Yes. So there's kind of 2 main places. I spend a lot of time on Instagram. It's the.baby.sleep.haven. And then my website is just thebabysleephaven.com. So both places are good places to find me. If you want to learn, more about what I do, I'd say go to my website. And if you want to just kind of see what's happening in my community, visit me on Instagram. So
very good. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful. I'm so excited to have a resource to share with families.
Yes.
Because like I've said, this is not my wheelhouse. So I'm happy to lean on people.
Yes, it's mine. I love baby sleep, love everything about it, love the families and the babies I work with. It's incredible.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. It was nice to chat today.
Absolutely.
I hope you found this episode on the feeding solutions helpful. If you would like more information, please follow Sensory Solutions on Facebook or Instagram, or you can always visit our website at www.sensorysolutionsTherapy.com. Thanks so much for joining today, and look forward to seeing you next time.